You know who I haven't spoken about in a while? The transformed wife. So let's take a look at her Instagram account and see what she's been up to. One of the first things I saw when I looked at her account was this Instagram story right here, in which she just decides to crap all over someone else's relationship, which is pretty typical for her, but this one feels more personal than normal, and honestly meaner than normal, because of what it's about. So here you have this woman, Katie, who is a relationship coach, and she's listing all these things that went wrong in her past relationship which led to divorce. And I'm assuming the point of this post is to be like, hey, these are the mistakes we made, this is how you can avoid them, but also this is how we recognize we came to the end of our relationship, and these are maybe signs you want to look out for as well. A very useful post, and very brave of her to use her own experiences as an example to teach others. Commend that a lot. So these things she lists on include, feeling like they're drifting apart, not making enough time and effort for each other, how this didn't make either of them happy, Fair enough, pretty standard stuff. What's the problem with it? Let other people make the decisions that are right for them, right? If these are the things that led to the end of her relationship, why shouldn't she talk about it? I actually really commend this woman and her partner for realising what wasn't working for them and taking steps to separate so they could both be happy individually. I think this is great, but Laurie doesn't. Laurie likes to chime in. She wants to get all judgy. She wants to pick apart someone else's relationship for reasons. So this post reads, how I went from happily married to divorced. I focused on the kids, he focused on work. Laurie responds with, this is our God-ordained roles. No more date nights. So? Too much life is business, not enough fun. So divorce is the answer? No, just us vacations. You have children. Lack of effort to speak each other's love language. Love language should be about giving, not getting. No support of each other's dreams. It's all about you, isn't it? Do not go to this relationship coach. Laurie's just a very angry, bitter woman, isn't she? I do feel sorry for her. This woman is literally here, this Katie, is saying, we weren't making enough time for each other, and Laura's response is literally, well, you're not meant to. Kids have got to be the focus. Stop complaining about not being happy enough and not enjoying yourself. Just put up with it already. It comes across as very cruel and heartless, and when someone's miserable and they want to make everyone else around them miserable? They're the vibes I constantly get from Laurie. Laurie is the name of the transformed wife, if you didn't know. That's her real name. The transformed wife is just a username. I also want to just focus on for a second this point here about love language, because Laurie's understanding of what love language is completely off. I don't really think she knows what she's talking about or what she's saying. She's just being angry for the sake of it. So love languages are this theory about how we express and understand receiving love. And this isn't just true in relationships, but this applies to our friendships and family relationships and all that stuff as well. So the 5 kind of categories of love language, if you want to use the kind of official ones, are physical touch, quality time, gifts, words of affirmation, and acts of service. So each person will prefer to show and be shown love in one of these ways, or a mixture of these ways. Everyone's going to kind of appreciate a little bit of each, but most people have a key 1 or 2 where they're like, yeah, this is how I like to show it to other people, and this is how I best understand it, So for me personally, I show my love through gift giving. That's the main thing. So when it comes to buying gifts for my friends and my partner and stuff like that, I put a lot of time and effort into making really thoughtful gifts or finding really thoughtful gifts. Whenever we have conversations and stuff, I always listen to things like, if they're complaining about something, I'm like, oh, do they have a problem that I can solve with a gift? Or if they're talking about things they like, I'm like, oh, how can I get them a gift related to this? Or if they mention that they want something, I make a little note in the back of my head so that, when their birthday comes around or I've got a little bit of extra money or something, I can go and get that for them. That's how I show I appreciate them. If I'm out shopping and I see something that's related to a conversation we've had, or I know it's something they like or whatever, I'll be like, oh, so-and-so will like that, I'll just get it for them. Oh, so-and-so will like that, I'll get that for them. And sometimes it's nice to just give a little gift to be like, hey, I was thinking of you. This is just to show that I appreciate you and you mean something to me. It doesn't have to be a big thing. It could be as simple as, when you pop to the shop, bringing back their favourite chocolate bar. But that's how I like to do it. That's how I show love and affection to the people around me. That's not to say I don't do it through the other ways as well. I absolutely do. But that's my main one. Whereas when it comes to receiving and understanding love, I don't really care about getting gifts all that much myself. I mean, obviously they're nice, but they're not my main thing. My main love language in terms of receiving is words of affirmation. So I need to hear someone say, I love you. I appreciate you, I like spending time with you. I need those words to be spoken for me to actually understand them and believe them. I need to hear them, you know? So it's important for me that with my friendships and my partner and things like that, and with someone who's compatible with that, someone who understands that when I give them a gift, that's me saying, I love you, not some kind of obligation to give something back, you know? People need to kind of like, this is why understanding people's love languages is a really important thing. And I've tried to date people in the past who, when I'm like, hey, can you just tell me how you're feeling? Do you feel this way? Some people get really angry about it. They think I'm like questioning them and stuff. I'm like, no, I just need to hear it for certain. It's like my partner now. He's amazing. He's constantly like telling me exactly how he's feeling, and you know, we'll have like whole conversations like, hey, I really liked when we did this. I really enjoy spending time with you. I love doing this, like, and that sort of thing. And that's really, really useful for me to hear because it makes me feel loved and safe and secure, and he's more than happy to provide that because he knows that's how I understand love. That's why being compatible with love languages and making the effort for the other person is really, really important, because otherwise it can lead to you feeling divided, it can lead to you feeling unloved, unsafe, insecure. It doesn't necessarily matter how you're feeling about another person if you can't effectively communicate it to them. So I'm not saying that I need to be with someone who's receiving love language is gifts, but I need to be with someone who understands that when I give them a gift, that means I'm showing love. And I need to be with someone who's okay to verbalize things to me. And it also means that I need to be aware of like my partner and my friends' love languages and be aware of how they understand love so I can show it to them in the appropriate ways. As much as I love giving gifts and stuff, there's no point in me just giving someone gifts for the sake of it if they're not getting anything out of it. So like with my partner, I'd say maybe his love languages is probably like a mix of words of affirmation and quality time, which means that I always put that effort in to, again, verbalize how I'm feeling to him and make sure I'm spending that time with him and putting the effort in and making sure he feels like, you know, he's got my time, he's got my attention, he's got this, so he understands it in that way. So it's about, I don't want to say necessarily compromise because that sounds a bit negative, but it's about being considerate of your partner's needs and understanding them. And that's what Katie was saying here. She was saying there was a breakdown in that between her and her husband. They weren't communicating their feelings properly, and it led to them both feeling probably a little unloved, a little insecure, and maybe that's something they could have worked on, but it maybe got to that point where there was too much of a divide and they didn't know how to communicate effectively with each other anymore. Well done, gorgeous. Of course, it's not just black and white. You don't just fit into one of these categories. There's lots of things, you know, like everyone's going to be receptive to different things. Like it's a grey area. It's not like an exact science. It's just a nice thing that can help you understand yourself a little bit better. But Laurie just completely misunderstands this and responds with, love languages should be about giving, not getting. And she's completely wrong. Love languages are about how we show and receive love. It's important to understand your own and understand your partner's, and vice versa, you know? Love you, baby. Laurie's just trying to make this woman out to be selfish and all me, when that's the last thing she's doing and the last thing she's saying. This woman's saying neither of us were communicating efficiently, and Laurie's like, well, you're being selfish. How does that work? That makes no sense, does it, Coops? It's the same with the last point on the list, which was no support of each other's dreams, and Laurie responds with, it's all about you, isn't it? Like, well, no, Laurie, that's exactly the point. Katie was saying the issue went both ways. You know, neither was supporting the other, and that's a really important thing to recognise. This might just mean they were starting to have diverging goals in life, and they were each going down different paths, and a breakup was the best option for them. I think it's a really important thing that Katie's pointed out, and there's absolutely no need for Laurie to respond by being so snarky about this woman's specific relationship issues, and being so rude and attacking her personally when she hasn't done anything wrong. This woman was brave enough to share her own experiences and as an example to say, here are mistakes we made, here's how we realised we needed to break up, here's what you can learn from it. That is brave and strong and should be commended, not publicly mocked like Laurie's doing here. I don't know why she chose this woman in particular to attack, I don't know who this woman is, but it just seems cruel for the sake of it, you know? This woman's sharing something that's probably making her feel incredibly vulnerable. She's sharing a difficult time of her life in order to help others. And Laurie's just mocking her for the sake of it, and it seems cruel, you know? What do you think, little grumbles? Kyra's talking in the background, she agrees. Our next post is one which is very, very typical for her. This reads, with marriage, you get to bear and raise children with a husband who provides so you can stay home and raise your own children. with a career. You get to wake up each day and work for strangers for a paycheck. Why were women so easily deceived into believing this was the better life? I don't wake up every day and work for a stranger. I work for myself. It's very nice, actually. I wake up every day and do a job that I love. I pursue hobbies that I love. I learn skills that I love. I'm constantly cultivating a life that I love. This idea of having children and having to stay in the house and look after other people constantly sounds like hell to me. Well, not so much as staying in the house, but I do that anyway. I work from home. And also, especially in the wintertime, I have a little bit of trouble leaving the house. I wouldn't go as far as to say, like, agoraphobia, but I do have difficulty getting out sometimes. Not the point here. Anyway, it's just something I've been struggling with recently. Back to the post. Point is, there's no deception here. I've not been deceived into believing anything. I've just, thankfully, thanks to feminism, thanks to a more equal society, which still has a way to go, but, you know, we're getting there. Women like me, people like me, this isn't a gendered thing at all, people like me have been given the option to realise what makes us happy and pursue that, regardless of our background. We aren't forced into boxes anymore. We aren't forced into lifestyles we don't want to have. We have lots of options ahead of us with education and different career paths and all these different things. There's still a long way to go, but we do have more options. There's no deception. There's no one saying you have to do this, this, and this. But there is a world saying, hey, here are the options in front of you. You still have to work for them. You don't just get given stuff. But there are options there. And that is a really positive thing. And I don't get why that's so hard for Laurie to understand. She can live that life that makes her happy. She can stay home and raise kids and do all that stuff that she enjoys doing. And I can live mine and do all the things that I enjoy doing, even though they don't overlap. And my life shouldn't affect hers at all. But for some reason, she gets all angry about the women living these lives. And I don't understand why, other than maybe it's fueled by jealousy or misery or some kind of projection. I don't know. I feel very sorry for Laurie. It's hard. A lot of the fundies that I react to and talk about and discuss, and I read their books and their social media posts and blogs and videos and all that stuff, some of them just make me angry. And Laurie does make me angry because she's quite horrible. She is misogynistic, she is homophobic, she is transphobic, she is all those horrible things. But more than anger, I just pity her. And I feel really sorry for her. And it makes me sad because I don't know how to help a woman like that, you know? She's clearly miserable, but she doesn't want to be helped, I don't think. And instead of asking for help and getting help, she's trying to drag everyone else down with her. And it's very hard to see. So I figure I can't help her directly, so let's talk about the content she's putting out, and hopefully that will help someone else who might be at risk of falling down the same paths that she is. Or at least you can take my arguments and maybe then go on and help others and so on, you know? Hopefully this is doing some good, that's my point. Let's look at the next post. This is following on in a similar vein. I'll never find fulfillment washing dishes. Yes, you can. You can thank the Lord for the food that was on the dishes, the people that ate from them, the ease it is to wash them with water out of a faucet, and that you have dishes at all. Fulfillment comes in obedience to God. Now, people are allowed to hate chores if they want to. I don't find them fun. I hate them. Actually, I hate doing the washing up in particular. It is a sensory nightmare for me. Having wet hands, having wet wrists. Oh, the sensation is almost painful. It is so unpleasant and I hate it. That said, I think Laurie is mistaking fulfillment with just general gratitude and also maybe just mindfulness in life in general. I'm going to show you Kyra right now. She is adorable. I'm sorry if she's snoring. She's very sleepy. We had a big game of fetch before this, so she's quite tired. So, I'm sure there are people who are finding actual fulfillment in things like household chores, and if they do, more power to them. No complaints about that. But not everyone has to. That shouldn't be a requirement. Sometimes it's okay for things in life to be things you just have to do, and you don't have to be happy about them. You don't have to get some big thing out of them. You just do them and move on, and that's okay. To me, something that's actually fulfilling is about achieving goals. It's about feeling joy and happiness. It's about fulfilling potential. That's what fulfillment's about. I personally don't get that out of chores, but if other people do, that's okay too. I think for me, being able to say, hey, I'm glad I've got running water, isn't necessarily about fulfillment. It's about just general gratitude in life and being mindful of your surroundings, you know? Yeah, be grateful for it, be aware of it. Make sure you're like, oh, not everyone has this. This is a nice thing. But that's not the same as fulfillment. Being grateful for the basics in life is something we should do. We should be very grateful for it, but that shouldn't have to be our only goal in life, our only source of fulfillment. Don't let people like Laurie make you feel guilty about wanting more, needing more, striving for more. It is okay to want more. It's okay to want fulfillment in other areas. It's okay to not find fulfillment in things like basic chores if you don't feel it. It's all okay. I'm not sure Laurie does feel real fulfillment in many areas of her life, and that's why she's kind of mistaken it here. And like I was saying before, this does make me feel sorry for her. I've never really seen any real joy in her posts or her content, as much as she tries to convince us, oh, I'm happy, I'm joyful. It's like, it doesn't seem that way. She talks about something which she clearly hates and then tells us to find joy in it because we have to, and that we'll never be anything more than that, and we shouldn't ever be anything more than that. Like in posts like this. Homemakers need to spend a lot of time in their kitchen. Food either nourishes your family's bodies or destroys their health. It's important that you learn to cook and feed your family nourishing food. Yes, it's time consuming and monotonous, but well worth your time. Find joy in it. And she's right, food is important. But those last lines of, it's time consuming and monotonous, find joy in it, that doesn't sound to me like someone who's actually enjoying their life. That doesn't sound to me like genuine fulfillment, It sounds to me like someone who's miserable and is just trying to convince the rest of the world that they aren't, because they want everyone else to be as miserable as them. They want everyone to do things their way, so they're all miserable together. Think about the last time you heard someone talk about something they found joy in, Did they use words like time-consuming and monotonous? No. They'll have spoken about the fun they had, the skills they learned from it, the things they did, the places they went, how they did this and this and this. There'll be excitement and joy. Calling something, yeah, it's time-consuming and monotonous, but we have to do it, That doesn't sound like joy to me at all. I think Laurie is miserable and she's kind of resigned to her fate, but she wants everyone else to do things her way so they can all be miserable together, I really, really do think that. Hey, gorgeous. Would you like a snack? Yeah? Alright, I'm gonna feed the beast. I'll be back. Come on, gorgeous girl. Let's get your food. Oh, yes, I hear you. I hear you. Oh, the dribbles, baby. The dribbles. This next post is on a different topic, but it's gross as hell. This is a throwback to some of her original Instagram posts where she would do these, handwritten pages of notes about whatever was in her head. This one, oh god, it's really bad. Virginity isn't for yourself. It's for the man you will one day marry. This is what my grandmother taught her 5 daughters. Your virginity isn't your own to do with as you want. It's not to be squandered or given away to boys who say they love you, but have no intention of making a vow to you, until death do you part, solely to be reserved for the man who will commit his life to you for all of his days. It's for a man who wants to raise children with you and provide for you. It's for a man who you can trust to save your virginity for, and the only man you can do this for is the man you call your husband. God's ways are for your protection and for your good. No. I have spoken about this before, but virginity really is a social construct. It's not real. And if you think it's this real objective thing, then how do you define it? Is it just about a penis entering a vagina? In which case, what about victims of rape? Does it only count if they consented? Or, what if they didn't? What about for same-sex couples? Can they never lose their virginity if there's not, 2 different body parts? What about anal sex? Does that count? If you're going to go with the idea that, any sexual activity counts, then what about other body parts? Mouths, fingers, anything else you can use? What if you have a physical exam at the doctor's and that involves vaginal or anal penetration with a finger or a medical object like a speculum or something like that? Does that count? And for people with vaginas, we can't just talk about things like hymens because every hymen is different. Some people barely have one. Some people have a more, I don't want to say prominent one, but a more full coverage one. The idea of breaking a hymen isn't really true for a lot of people. These are all myths. For men, there's no visual cue, there's no physical cue, there's nothing like this. What makes someone have or lose virginity is so hard to define because it's not a real objective thing. It's up to each individual to determine what it means to them. Sure, there are general notions in a society that might influence our personal beliefs, some societies might think this is a loss of virginity, some societies might think this is blah blah blah, but Ultimately, it comes down to what you think of your own body that matters, you know? How do you define what virginity is and if it means anything to you? How do you define, I guess, sexual contact and sexual encounters? How do you define these things to yourself? That's what's important. But regardless of how you define it and what it means to you, the concept that something about a woman's body is for a man, who you might not even know at this point, is disgusting. Even if virginity was real, it's not for anyone else. That is a thing for yourself. Anything going on in your body is for you and no one else. The only person who gets a say over your sexual activity and things that happen to your body is you. And side note, I actually hate when people talk about things like losing your virginity, giving someone your virginity. That's absolute crap. When you choose to engage in sexual activity with anyone, you're not losing anything. You're not giving them anything. It's two or maybe more people sharing an experience together. There's a gain of experience. There's a gain of emotions, but it's not a detriment. There's no loss. You're not giving anything away. Laurie and other people's narrative of losing, giving it away, virginity being something for someone else, in this case a man, is all purity culture nonsense. It does nothing but harm and shame mostly women and create anxiety and worry and feelings of self-hatred around the body and sexual activity, and that's not okay. It's really, really damaging. This whole post is disgusting. The next post is less serious, but it just made me laugh. This is a woman whose username is literally the transformed wife, who has spent years now posting online about her marriage and the relationships of other people and talking about, oh, my marriage used to be this bad. This is how I fixed it. Oh, you've sent me this email asking about this problem in your marriage. Let me share it with everyone else. And yet she says this: if you're in a difficult time in your marriage, please don't share it on social media. Find a godly older woman to share everything with. Find wise counsel and comfort from her. You will never help your marriage by criticizing your husband to the world. You will help destroy it. Yeah, someone older and wiser like her. You know, that way you're not complaining about your husband online. She is. Seriously, did she think about this every time she spoke about her own marriage in the past? Did she think about this every time she shared emails of people asking her for help and advice? Did she think about this when she shamed Katie's breakup in that other post? The hypocrisy. The next post starts off okay and sounds good on the surface until you realise it's absolutely disgustingly dangerous. Teach your children not to be easily offended, not to hold grudges, forgive easily, have lots of grace towards others, and that life is not fair. Their lives will be so much simpler and more peaceful if you teach them these things, and their future spouses will enjoy being married to them. And you know what? Yeah, teaching kids about forgiveness, not holding grudges, great advice. I can get behind that. I can see that being good. But teaching them to do this so their lives will be more peaceful, so their future spouses will enjoy being married to them, just screams to me, teach your kids not to stand up for themselves. And that is something I find really dangerous. If you only ever teach your kids to be passive, to always forgive no matter what happens, to never stand up for themselves, to never have enough self-worth, and that life is just not fair and they should deal with it. If you teach them to never speak back to their partners because peace is better than justice, then you are absolutely setting them up for people to take advantage of them, to abuse them, and for them to not be able to recognize abuse or be strong enough or have enough self-worth to know they need to leave. This kind of advice that peace is better than what's right, the advice that, oh, you know, a quiet life is better than a happy life, is really, really dangerous. And I am so mad with Laurie for putting this stuff out there. My mum always told me when I was a kid, like, oh, you keep your head down and get on with it. Whenever I had problems and stuff, if I ever had the courage to open up to her, her response would be, keep your head down and get on with it. Oh, that's just life. Ooh. And it was horrific advice. I was miserable for so many years because she didn't do anything to help me. When I was bullied, when I was in classes I hated, when I didn't want to go to school, she did absolutely nothing to help me at all. And I did carry that with me into my adulthood, and it made me feel guilty for so long every time I wanted to stand up to something and fight back. And in the end, even when I tried to fight back and I'd feel that guilt that she taught me to feel, I stopped giving up. And so then when I was in an abusive relationship, I didn't know how to leave. I didn't know that that wasn't normal. I thought that was just part of life. especially because he was telling me that I was the problem, and then thinking back to my mum and dad telling me I was the problem, and I was like, well, okay, maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I just need to be more passive. Maybe I need to be more quiet. When I'm hurt, I need to stop saying it. Because that was always the thing, you know, I'd catch him cheating and it would be my fault for having caught him. Or he'd, you know, he'd start an argument with me and be very disrespectful and insult me, but it was my fault for being upset by it, you know? And having grown up being told, you keep your head down and get on with it, that's what I tried to do, and it meant I stayed in a dangerous situation for far longer than I should have. So when Laurie puts advice like this out there, she's teaching kids to not stand up for themselves. She's teaching them to be passive. She's teaching them to not get out of dangerous situations. And it's really, really bad. And it scares me. And finally, I'm just going to end by reading you one post and ask you guys to respond to this one in the comments, because I know you're going to have some good responses. She writes, "Nothing good has come from women leaving their homes for the workforce. It has harmed marriages, children, and nations. It was Satan's plan all along. God's plan is for women to be keepers at home. No one is raising the next generation. The bad fruit is evident everywhere." Really? Are you serious? Nothing good has ever come from women being in the workforce? I know, this is so narrow-minded and just plain wrong, so I want you guys to let me know down in the comments. What good have you seen from women leaving the home and joining the workforce? Give me examples either from your personal life or from history. You know, I can think of a few incredible women. I want to look at people like Ada Lovelace. I want to look at, you know, the women who made this possible today. If it wasn't for women, we wouldn't have the internet. We wouldn't be able to do things like this. Think about all the amazing women who worked in factories and on farms and basically saved us during the World Wars. Look at the women at Bletchley Park during World War II. If it wasn't for them, we probably wouldn't have won that war. So women joining the workforce, women leaving the home, so much. But I want to hear your thoughts and your examples down in the comments. But for now, thank you very, very much for today. Also, let me know what you thought of this video, what you think of Laurie, the transformed wife, and all of her content. If you enjoyed this, please don't forget to subscribe, leave a like. You can follow me over on Instagram at Rachel Oates. That's with a 0 instead of an O because my name was taken and I'm annoying like that. You can also get my book. It's available now. It's a poetry book called Reflections on Healing, all about, well, reflecting on healing, the healing process, looking back through my past and how it's affected me and who I am today and how I overcame a lot of that stuff. It's just a short poetry pamphlet filled with poems and photography and other fun stuff like that. And if you want to get it and support me, then I'm incredibly grateful. And thank you so much. But for now, thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll see you guys again really, really soon.